Previously on Lizard of Doom, I painted Skid, the first punk for my game, Union Jacked, and then I painted a whole squad of Riot Police. But now, the punks need a little bit more backup, so time to do one of their leaders. This is Blitz Baker, a punk drake or dragish because Dragonborn is copyrighted by some wizards that live in close proximity to water. Blitz Baker has been sculpted for me from my original concept design. You can see how truthful to the original design that this sculpt is. We had to make very little adjustments to get it to actually be a castable miniature, and the only adjustment would be that flame touching the hand to make it more supported. But overall, great job by Dan, my sculptor. So let's start the paint job with that flame. We're starting with matte white, demonic yellow, incursion orange, carmine red, and matte black from the Army Painter airbrush range. These will be painted from left to right across that flame. Really simple paint job. Starting with the white for the bright spot right next to his mouth. Now I'm doing this before the rest of the paint job because I am not going to be doing OSL on these. I've said maybe in another paint job further down the line where I'm doing alternate versions I will be doing that. But for now I'm keeping this kind of nice and cartoony and less real world. I want this to be a bright, fantastical game, and this is how I'm going to do it. These colours are kind of like cartoon fire rather than real fire, and I'm going to be ending the tip of this smoke off with the matte black to create a really dirty burn. I did it with white on Skid's Molotov previously, but this black is going to signify some kind of a noxious chemical that is coming out of Blitz Baker's mouth and burning really dirty, horrible smoke. Disgusting and just right for a Dragonborn punk. Once I've finished this, you can see the lovely glow of cartoonish bright fire across this breath from the Drag leader himself. Now for the pink. Screamer pink, pink horror, and Emperor's Children is how I thought I was going to paint this pink. This is the base coat. Give it the old Duncan 2 thin coats to make sure I've got good coverage. It was looking pretty dark from here, so I thought I'll highlight it up. I'll start really gently picking up those areas that I want to catch the light, and also making sure there is subtle texture on his skin on the back of the tail and back of the arms, where I could blend up nice and smooth and make it look like a real muscular lizard tail, like it's part of a real creature's anatomy. However, this ain't looking pink enough for me. These areas under the underbelly I want to be a lighter colour, so I went and based them completely in the highlight colour, cutting out any of the lower pink. This is the pink horror, which I thought would be the middle colour. Turns out, no, it's going to be the base colour for these under sections. But now I'm going to mix it with some white to highlight those areas under the scaly bits of his belly and his tail. But the rest of it, it's not bright enough for me. This needs to be brighter. So how am I going to do that? I'm going to involve some fluorescent pink from Pro Acryl. This is going to be mixed with the pink horror. So I don't want to go pure fluorescent. I don't want it to be insane. But here it is. This is as high as I would push this. And you can see me doing last little bits of light pink highlights on the underbelly here. I achieved this by just glazing over those areas I had already highlighted with the fluorescent pink mix and pushing it up. But now Skid's hair is looking less pink. So we also need to do a little glaze of the fluorescent pink over that to catch him up. And this was how I'll be doing the pink, pushing forwards on all the rest of the punks. Genestealer purple, and I'm going to mix that with some white to do edge highlights, but before I get to that step I'm also going to use some Druchii violet for the shade to make sure the gaps in between the fins on his head are nice and prominent. This will add a nice little bit of depth and shadow there before going back over the top with some Druchii violet to bring out the main bulk of them and keep them a nice purple colour. I always knew that when I came to painting this miniature I would want these to be purple because it goes with the pink on the rest of the punk, and purple is not a colour for a different faction. So far the different colour factions are pink, blue, red, yellow and green. I'm working on a 5th faction I'm making myself options for what I bring out after the first release of these two factions, the Fearless and the Fuzz, Punks and Police. Now, anthracite grey and white is how I've been painting all of the whites on all of these miniatures. The police shirts, Skids t-shirt, anthracite grey with a little bit of white mixed in for the base, and then a gentle glaze up towards the final finish white, adding more white into that mix of the two colours until we reach the bright white, which is just for the top and edge highlights, making a nice smooth transition on this skull. But I have left a little bit more of the anthracite because I wanted this to look like a worn decal on this t-shirt. Now, flat earth and dark sand. These are going to be for all of the claws and horns on this dragon. Flat earth, then mix it 50-50 with the dark sand before going in with a final little edge highlight of the dark sand at the end. These are some very nice bony colours, very good for skeletons. That dark flat earth is very nice and rich and mixes perfectly with other colours. It's very well pigmented. Black and dark grey is how I'm going to highlight the more material bits of his clothing. By that I mean not leather. So his t-shirt and his jeans are going to look a little bit more worn by making them more grey. This is going to be very little glazing and subtle highlights just to bring them up on the top edges so they still read as black once everything else is painted around them. Now, dark sea blue is how I'm going to do the leathers. I prefer this for leathers rather than the grey because it looks more like worn leather than worn cotton, which goes a little bit more grey. This is done in the same manner, glazed up on the top edges and a little bits of edge highlighting just to pick out the high bits of this leather. Dark silver and silver for some of the metallics now. His cool little 90s chain on his belt here, and also the studs on his bracelets. Next, I will be working on the brass knuckles. Now, obviously, they are brass knuckles. They would have to be custom made because he is a three-fingered dragon person, so we need some brass colours for that. We are going to use bronze and bright gold from Pro Acryl to give it a nice dark rich base coat, and then some really poppy edge highlights, make it look like it's really glinting in the light. I've chosen to do true metallics on these models rather than attempt a non-metallic metal because the areas are very small on these miniatures. No one is going to have massive metal areas that I've got in the planned lineup yet, so true metallics just help these areas pop quickly and make them catch your eye a little bit more than very subtle NMMs on very small areas. I think it looks a little bit more realistic, and if Games Workshop do it, so can I. These badges are incredibly fiddly but very rewarding. A very fine brush to paint little designs on here. I'm trying to do an Anarchy A on this little badge, and once that is done, we'll do a little dot of white on the top right corners of all of the badges to add a little bit of shine to them, and then do some hard coat gloss varnish to add real shine to them. The combination of these two leads to a nice little effect when it is dry. The white highlight gives it a nice pop, and then the shiny gloss gives it more realism. And with that, we have this finished model here. Thank you very much for watching. Please do consider subscribing and sharing this video. I don't often ask for shares. Share this video with someone who you think this game may interest once it comes out, because I'm working on it constantly in the background. I'm doing about 6 people's job. And thank you to my Patreons. Thank you for the support you give me and help me do all these wonderful things. If you would like to help support an indie game dev working on their very own miniatures game, someone who's got the nuts, the cojones, to have an idea that they think is great and put their own money behind it and go all in, please do consider the Patreon. Thank you all for watching. Leave a little like and a comment. That would be amazing to help this video get boosted in the algorithm. Peace!